Okay, grade nines, we are back at it. We are into chapter 7. This is the section of this called Consumerism. And this is probably the part that you're most complicit in if you want to think about being, guilty of something. I don't know that I actually believe that we're guilty of consumerism. I don't know that consumerism is 100% a bad thing. I do think that it is something worthwhile taking a look at, though. Keegan, I'm sorry you're not here. We would have had a wonderful discussion about shoes. I would have shown you like 4 or 5 videos about shoe culture and people like going and shopping for shoes. I watched yesterday a really, interesting video for me, but it was Lil Wayne shopping for shoes with I forget which skate or rap magazine personality. At any rate, it was interesting to me to see him talk about what he values and how he shops, or in his case, how he doesn't shop, but he instead has someone else do shopping for him. So let's get into it here. This unit is all about consumerism, and consumerism is basically if I buy stuff, if I get money to buy stuff, then I should do that because it helps to provide for the entire economy. If I buy stuff, then someone else has a job, and if that person has a job, that they can have money to spend on their own things and all that jazz. It's the whole, it really is the economic system that we are kind of alive and living in and trapped in at times too. So let's get right down to it. So there's going to be a couple of really important questions in here. This one up here, this bolded one. Have you ever thought of what influences you as a consumer? I doubt if most of us really have. Like, lots of us just kind of buy stuff or take in TV shows or those kinds of things without really thinking about the why portion of, why we buy the things we buy. Is it for comfort? Is it because it's that specific brand? And truth be told, I am somewhat of a brand name snob. I hate to admit it, but I personally am in this. When it comes to my shoes, no matter whether you've historically liked my shoes or not, I won't buy a no-name brand shoe. I'll spend an extra $100 to $200 sometimes on a pair of shoes if it is the right brand. I won't buy no-name brand jeans even if they're cheaper, because in my head, the name brand is usually associated with some amount of quality. I don't care so much about stature. Like, I don't think that people will look at me better or worse if I have Levi's brand as opposed to some other no-name brand. But I do know that inside of my brain as a youth, that was definitely a part of my brain at a certain point in time. Just a side story, my sister got a job at Manhattan Clothing Company in the mall when I was in probably grade 9 or 10, and my parents took like all my crappy old clothes. Like, I went through junior high pretty lame, and I didn't have a ton of like nice things, and then grade 9 came, or grade 10, and all of a sudden, Tommy Hilfiger was on the labels of shirts I was wearing and other things like that. And I don't know that I was aware that I was being a brand name snob then, but sometimes you're not aware of stuff. So why do we do that though? Why does that happen? What drives it? Is it an internal thing, or is it more like me where my sister became a bit more brand savvy and kind of brought it home? My parents ended up buying me nicer clothes. I really don't know. These two main questions, again, we're comparing and contrasting the USA and Canada. So what forces it? What is the thing that drives our desire for consumer goods, for things, stuff? Up here, I have a link to a video. I will show you guys later on. I'm going to play that video and make you guys kind of do a short analysis of it. I want you to pick up whether it's more left-leaning or more right-leaning. I don't know if that's left or right on your screen or not, but it is with my hands. So more left leaning or more right leaning. And some of you guys will really hate it. Some of you guys will look at it and say, yeah, actually, I never really thought about that before. That makes some sense to me. So I'm going to play you guys a video later on that will hopefully rattle some people's chains a little bit, or make some people think about things differently than they've thought about it before. That ultimately is my goal here with this last section. And what affects the impact of consumerism on the economies of Canada and the US? So what are the outside things actually kind of pushing consumer behavior in our world? This picture here is the one that we're going to spend a lot of time talking about, which is what drives our decisions. And we're going to talk a lot about advertisements and things like that. I'm going to play some music videos for you guys that will hopefully make you think a little bit about your desire to have nice things. I'm going to play some silly stuff and some more thought-provoking things. So just be prepared for that. I'm going to get right down into the bottom part here. So this section here, how does what we do as consumers affect individuals? How does it affect our overall economy? How does it affect the jobs your parents have? All those kinds of things. And like, what are the impacts of the decisions that we make, seen or unseen? Because not all this stuff is going to automatically just be obvious and like right there in front of us. So, oh, by the way, I don't know if this is actually West Edmonton Mall, but I love going to West Edmonton Mall. I can spend hours and hours walking up and down the hallways in West Edmonton Mall looking at stuff that I will never buy. I can walk into multiple stores. I love shopping. I am a shopaholic, I'll admit it. It's on video. My wife dislikes shopping. I, at one point in time, had around 30 pairs of shoes, if you count my sandals. I currently own 4 pairs of sandals, depending on what I'm doing. And so, like, what impact does my desire to have shoes? Does it provide someone a job here in Canada at the mall? Does it provide someone a job somewhere else in the world? What does my role as a consumer have on the bigger, wider running of the world? And I realize that it seems very petty to think that my shoe shopping ways might have some big impact on the global economy, but it does have some impact at the very least. So this is going to be the driving question for the next 2 videos. What guides your behavior as a consumer? What drives you? What makes you tick when it comes to you being a consumer? Is it, like I talked about earlier, is it like me wanting to look a certain way? I remember when my dad last year was buying a vehicle, my mom's coworker was mad because my parents were tossing and turning between a Honda and a Toyota. And the lady at my mom's work was like, you shouldn't buy those. They're not Canadian cars. They're foreign cars, and you're supporting someone else. You should buy a Canadian car. And she was trying to get my parents to buy a Jeep, which I put the kibosh on pretty hard. By the way, he ended up buying a Toyota, which was it was one of the smartest decisions. It's a good vehicle. But my dad went in and looked, and the Jeep that she wanted my parents to buy, which, the company is owned in North America, was manufactured in Mexico and some parts, I think, in Guatemala. And that's the end of school. I'm going to go. No, the Toyota and the Honda both were manufactured in Ontario. And so is it important that I buy a product that is made here at home and makes jobs here at home? I personally think it is pretty important. I do want to keep my dollars keeping the Canadian economy running and keeping it progressing and making more jobs and continuing to drive our economy by more people. The more people that have jobs, the more they can then spend money, and the more that money goes into our economy, the more people that have to be hired in other jobs. And so this consumerism thing, it doesn't matter if it's running well. is a legit thing that keeps our economy running. And if it's done really well, it runs our economy coast to coast. So these questions here under the bullets. How will your identity, who you are, how does your consumer habits impact your identity affect your choices to what you buy? Are you one of those people? And I know in your class, you'll be surprised how many people are going to say, I actually don't care at all what it is that I'm buying. I just buy the clothes that I want to buy that are comfortable. And then there are people like myself. I will choose to buy something with a brand name over something that does not have a brand name. Partially because I think of quality, partially because I just like the stuff that I don't know. I am somewhat of a slave to that. Anyways, who you are, what you believe in and value, where you live, the groups you belong to, the way you see the world, they all are affected by that. You guys have seen all over Grand Prairie, like I Heart Alberta Oil, those kinds of things. They are driving impacts. And if you have someone that supports something that you believe in or value, you may well see yourself choosing to buy products that are associated with that. How much do you consider health and safety and things like that? And this can kind of come into another area where it's like, how much does it affect, like, are the shoes you're wearing right now made in something like a sweat factory, a sweatshop? And like, are people making below minimum wage, working way too many hours? Is there child labor involved in the manufacturing of your shoes? I really hope there aren't anything like that. I hope I'm not supporting that, but I do know that some of the brands that I historically have liked have less than great reputations in that. How does choosing the product affect the jobs people have? Again, I'm a big fan of buying local. If I can buy a product here in town as opposed to in Edmonton or Calgary, I will typically choose to buy it here. Because I do want to continue to keep our local economy going. Is there an environmental impact? Should I buy I actually feel somewhat guilty about my Pathfinder, even though it's relatively cheap and I don't have to replace it. It just drives me back and forth. And I do know that it is a pig on gas compared with a small car, which would get me back and forth from home to school. So those are things. Is there an environmental impact to the decisions I make? Should I spend $10,000 to buy a cheap used small car, or should I save my money and put a little bit of money into my Pathfinder and then keep running it, even though it's not all that environmentally sound? How does marketing affect what you buy? And do you really need to buy anything at all? And that, when we get to this question here at the end, this is where I'll play you guys a pretty biased video, and I do want you guys to think about the bias that is present in that video. So we're only 6 pages into this, but that's where I'm going to end this video. I hope you guys are excited. I'm going to put up a bunch of YouTube videos I'm going to ask you guys to respond to, and I'm going to continue making these this week for this new topic. So I'll see you guys when I see you.